And hello and welcome to Hollywood Blockbusters. Happy New Year, if we're not past the window of being able to say Happy New Year. I am your host, Joe Hollywood, and once again I'm joined by Imaginos Pete.
Hey, and Happy New Year.
And Andrew Walker.
Hello.
I was expecting more after that. And our guest critic who brings up the class in this place, Robert Butler. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me back.
Knowledge, culture, class, the whole package.
Today I'm going to be playing the role of the grumpy old man who thinks that movies were better in the 70s and 80s.
You too? Did we get a show notes cross? Dang it.
You're going to hear me doing a lot of complaining today. We are going to be talking about our favorite movies of 2024. We're going to look back over the past year, and then a little bit later we're going to look ahead to what we're most excited about in 2025.
Yes.
Lots of interesting stuff coming out.
What you're saying about Andrews, and he said, I thought there'd be more. That was my sentiment about 2024. I thought there'd be more.
And that's what my ex said too. So
Now, traditionally, like when we go back to pre-COVID days, I used to see about 20 to 25 movies a year. And at the end of the year, I'd always put together my top 10 list, my top 10 favorite movies of the year. Not necessarily the best movies of the year, but my favorite movies of the year. And when it came time to try and compile that list for 2024, not only did I struggle putting together my favorite top 10 movies, I struggled putting together a list of movies I saw in 2024. I'm only at about 8 movies that I've seen in 2024 at the theater. I don't know if streaming movies would change that at all. I haven't seen many original streaming movies this past year. And if you guys want to bring up streaming movies during this podcast, that's fine. But in my opinion, 2024, and you guys may disagree with me on this, 2024 is one of the most forgettable years for movies in movie history. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of movies that came out this past year that people will be talking about 10 years from now, 20 years from now. You guys may disagree with that, but I just don't think there's anything that really had an impact on pop culture in America. The biggest movie of the year that came out, the top movie of 2024 is Inside Out 2. It grossed $653 million domestically, $1.7 billion globally on a $200 million budget. It came out on June 14th, and get this, ranks 8th all time. It cracked the top 10 highest-grossing movies of all time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me too. Of course, Amy Poehler returned, and Maya Hawke. And it actually surpassed the original Inside Out, which came out in 2015, which earned $858 million. So it significantly outgrossed Part 1. Now, I did not see this movie, and here's the reason. I saw the first one. I enjoyed it, but it was so damn depressing. I mean, the whole thing kind of revolved around sadness. And I'm sitting there for 90 minutes, sad. And I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for. I don't want to be sad throughout this entire movie. So then when they announced the sequel, they say, okay, the first one was about sadness, but get this new one's about anxiety. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm not going to put up with 90 minutes of anxiety. I got enough crap I have to deal with. So I sat this one out. So I throw out to you gentlemen, did you see Inside Out? Nick, let's start with you.
I have not yet.
Okay.
I've not seen it.
What is your reason?
I'm backlogged. I basically need to have like a movie enema of sorts. I need
this town needs an enema.
Yeah, I'm back because there's so many. Because I also, when you think about TV, and in streaming, there's a lot out there. And also for Inside Out 2, I'd rather just watch it at home. It's available on streaming, so I probably will check it out.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the first one, but kind of like you were saying, it was more, it's like you said, wrestling with your internal demons. The young kid that moves, and I've moved several times, so I kind of related to that. You move, the new school, new place. How do you get around to it? You don't really need true antagonist. It's more how would you cope with it?
Yeah.
And and the next logical thing is she's becoming a teenager, so that's scary. And so they went with that. So, I'll watch it. I hope it's as good as the first one, because sequels always have that disappointment to it. But when I see numbers like this, that it was in the top 10 of all-time grossers.
So that's got to say something.
Well, that kind of tells me of like 2023 when Barbie and Oppenheimer just skyrocketed up. No one has been to the theaters in so long. They were looking for any reason to go.
Yeah.
You give people any reason to have some form of excitement, they will go to the theater. So somewhere deep down, it's like when you had a big drought and you wonder if like like grass will ever grow, and then a little bit of rain falls and all the grass comes out. You see in those nature documentaries.
Yeah.
That's America's theater audience. Like, I don't think it's there.
Yeah.
You just have to give them a reason to go. Like Deadpool, Wolverine.
Yep.
Yeah.
They just went to the theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to give them a reason to go, and they'll go. But sometimes when they go, it's that's the reaction.
And that happens to me more often than not. Andrew, did you get a chance to see it?
I did not. It's getting more rare and rare that I'll watch an animated movie for some reason.
Yeah.
And I
mean, there was a period where I loved Disney movies and Pixar movies, and I don't know if I just got burnout on them, but the last dozen or so, I'll sit down and watch them on Disney Plus or whatever, and I'm like,
Their originals and sequelitis is coming in, but there's some good animated movies that can. I think, Robert, you were posting about this because I have it on my list. I'm probably going to watch it in this next week, which is Wild Robot.
Yeah,
I recommend that.
Yeah,
Flow 2 is a great animated.
Yeah, and it won in the Golden Globes, so I will go check those out. I don't have anything against animated movies. I will put them on my list. I just, I'm lazy also.
Robert, I'm sure you got a chance to see Inside Out, too.
I did.
What are your recollections of it?
Well, I have to tell you, even though I liked it, I thought it was inferior to the first one. I thought I liked the first one quite a bit. Now, the reason why I'll say this, I don't think I gave it a fair review, just because what you brought up earlier. I saw it when I was enduring a lot of anxiety. I was going through a job change at the time.
Yeah.
We had a whole restructuring at work. Had to retrain a bunch of new people. I had a lot of workload. I was working till 10 o'clock at night sometimes, so I felt that anxiety. So in the summer, I look at my ratings on my movies and Letterboxd and went back and like, wow, I rated a lot of movies low. I probably couldn't enjoy them because I was so stressed out. But now, we're at a point of equilibrium now, and when I started rating movies higher and stuff like that. But overall, it was, from what I recall watching it, was enjoyable. It hit a lot of the same notes from the first one, though, and it was just replicating the sadness with the anxiety, like you said. It was pretty much the same film in many levels. And what's interesting is that sequel came out, the movie, the first
8 years
one
ago,
was
2015. 10 years, almost 10 years.
9 years it was released, and the girl's hasn't aged much longer.
They did that with The Incredibles, where the second movie came out a decade later, and it just takes place an hour, a couple of days later than the first movie. So
I thought it'd been more interesting if they would have showed her a little older, like the age she was. I think it could have made a more interesting story. But this one, she's in high school, she's playing hockey and all that. So it just great voice work, great animations you expect. But I'm with you guys. I'm kind of in Pixar burnt out mode myself right now.
Now you bring up a great point, because we were just talking prior to the podcast about how two critics can watch the same movie and have two completely diverging opinions of the movie, and I'm like, why is that? And you just brought up a great point. Maybe that's something to do with what the critic brings to the theater when they sit down and watch the film.
Absolutely.
Depending on your state of mind and what you're experiencing and how you react to this film. So that's pretty interesting. Now, let's talk about my favorite. Now, again, I'm not calling this the best movie of the year, but my favorite movie of the year.
You the favorite for the end.
No, we're gonna come out of the gates with favorite. I thought this was the most fun movie of the year. Is it a good movie? Maybe not necessarily, but it was fun and I enjoyed it. And I'm talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. I was really looking forward to it. It's probably my most eagerly anticipated movie of 2024. And it was the first time in a while where the crowd that I was with, it was a small crowd. I was in a small theater, but they reacted enthusiastically to this film, and they were cheering. And there were moments where I wanted to get up on my feet and yell, kind of along the lines of, Endgame and all that stuff, where, the crowd cheered. So I had a lot of fun watching this movie. It grossed $636 million domestically, 1.338 billion globally. on a $200 million budget. That seems to be the cost of a movie nowadays, $200 million. It came out in July, and it cracked the top 20 all time.
Yeah.
So Deadpool and Wolverine is the 20th highest grossing film of all time, which blows my mind. Again, I thought it was a lot of fun. Typical, Deadpool banner, and those two characters just bounce off each other so well. So I enjoyed it. It's one of the few DVDs that I bought over the last few years. It's something I would want to sit down and watch again. I only bought 2 DVDs this year. Another movie we may talk about a little bit later is Godzilla -1. Those are the only 2 DVDs I bought this year. And usually I buy quite a few DVDs, but again, there's not much that came out in 2024 that spoke to me. Nick, your feelings on Deadpool and Wolverine?
I enjoyed it, but it's one of those things where it was a spectacle. It was fan service. It's the 3rd Deadpool movie. I know what I'm going to get from Ryan Reynolds. I'm glad Hugh Jackman said yes, because everyone always talked about it. Wouldn't it be great if they were there after that one thing they did when they were originally Deadpool Wolverine the movie. I won't mention that. No fans want to mention that either. But yeah, and but the story was it was basically we were going to try and bring as many Marvel characters in there and have those moments.
Yeah.
Other than having moments, that's why you cheer for the moments. Story wise, like you're not good enough to be an Avenger. Boo hoo.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, and I want to save. Yeah, you got to save your universe and redeem this particular Hugh Jackman and see if we're going to bring it into the universe. So, it was long, but yeah. I went to theater. I saw it. I had the same experience. People were laughing and cheering. It felt good to have that vibe again. That's what I actually enjoyed. I appreciated the vibe of the movie theater, what it was pre-COVID, and you would go to see Avengers Infinity War and have people when Thor shows up and people start cheering like crazy. I'm like, yeah.
Now, speaking of burnout, I've been burnout on multiverse movies. I'm just tired of multiverse movies. But for some reason, I didn't seem to mind it in this movie. They were able to poke fun at the different versions of Wolverine and all that stuff. And so that was kind of fun that they kind of took that trope and sort of had some fun with it. So I didn't mind it, but I am a little...
I mean, Deadpool will turn into the wave of all the criticism. Like, you're just breaking the fourth... Oh, they broke the fourth wall. I mean, and he's like, yeah, we did. And you can call... And he'll mention a lot of the criticisms in the movie theater. Like, I mean, he'll mention, like, oh, take that and suck it. Yeah, not hot enough, huh? Not enough story for you?
Yeah.
And just put a little Ryan Reynolds, like, wit into it. And
you're
like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, your memories of Deadpool?
Yeah,
Wolverine?
I saw it opening night with 2 buddies from work in a packed theater at Great Lakes Crossing. I agree with Nick. It was fun at the time. It was a spectacle, and it was great seeing it with a crowd where I could tell everybody loved it. In terms of the trilogy, I think it's the weakest, like story wise.
Now, here's what's interesting. I want to stop you there.
Okay.
I have read that this is not the 3rd movie of a trilogy. It is a standalone Deadpool Wolverine movie. That there are still plans for what they will probably label Deadpool 3. So this is not, according to the creators, not Deadpool 3.
Okay.
Continue.
Sure.
Compared to the first 2.
Yeah.
If Hugh Jackman was not in this movie, it would not have.
I agree.
It would have made less than half of what it made.
Yeah, he's the big draw.
He was the draw. Without him, I might not even have gotten greenlit. The villain was weak. Emma Corrin played what's
Professor
his
X's
name? His sister.
Yeah,
was it his niece or sister?
Twin.
See, we don't even remember.
What's her name?
Yeah.
She's that forgettable.
Yeah, I forgot the name.
I
Yeah,
thought
she-
she's
No, you're absolutely
It's
right
one of
about
those
the
alternate
villain.
universe
Yeah.
timelines.
The villain was almost pointless because you're not there for the villain. You're there to see the banter between these 2 guys.
And I felt like they fought each other too much, like just pointlessly. Like,
yeah, they did have a couple of long, drawn-out
And
fight
I
scenes.
think
where
that
you're
was
like, okay,
filler.
we get it.
Like when they were in that van in the woods.
I mean, because
Yeah.
there's no consequences. They
that's-
can't kill each other.
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah, it was pointless because there was no consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, if they
exactly.
wanted to behead each other, they could have, but
Yeah.
they never did.
Sure.
If that's
The-
what kills them.
The cameos were cool
Yeah, those were
with
fun. And they always kind
Wesley
of
Snipes.
took a twist. Like when you thought they would be going one direction, they went in a different direction. So that was fun.
It was cool seeing Magic Mike as Gambit.
Yes.
As Robert knows, my favorite X-Men.
Yeah,
When we were 5 years old, we'd play X-Men on my
Yeah,
parents'
Gambit.
couch on Saturday mornings.
that would explain the playing cards all over the place.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, since you brought it up. There has been talk of a standalone Gambit movie starring Magic Mike.
For a long time.
Would you pay money to see a standalone Gambit movie?
I would.
It would need to be subtitled, I think.
Yeah, his
Low
accent was pretty atrocious. I would hope they would do it good and have a decent director and not Zack Snyder it and have it be too over the top
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
all the CGI and stuff.
I think the character would work better in an ensemble piece than like a standalone piece. I think an hour and a half or 2 hours of Gambit might be a bit much.
It's like
We-
could you have 2 hours of Jubilee?
Yeah.
No.
No, they work better. As a
So
team.
there was a Gambit, and was it X-Men or Wolverine Origins? Taylor Kitsch
Yeah.
for a small bit, and when that came out, I'm like, that's cool. I wouldn't have minded Taylor Kitsch being
Spin-off, yeah.
I'm sure they approached him. This movie basically was like
yeah.
it basically was a middle finger to all the Fox executives that delayed the original
Yes.
Deadpool for a decade.
Yes.
And there was a Gambit standalone that they pulled the plug on.
Yeah.
And there were, they sure never got rid of Wesley Snipes' as Blade. And so now so he basically put the pressure on all these executives who made really bad decisions, when they should have cashed in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Robert, your thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine?
I was pretty mixed on it, to be honest. Not that I hated it, not that I loved it. I was pretty middle of the road. I think it's, if anything, a mild recommendation if I were to tell people, because there's a lot of stuff that works.
Yeah.
The dynamic, the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman
Mhm.
is the saving grace in that film. Let's
Mhm.
face it.
Yeah, agreed.
What I did not like about it was how monotonous the CGI blood was. I got real sick of it
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
rolling my eyes on this. Is getting really old. It's getting tedious.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then and what's weird is I'm burnt out of fan service. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, the fan service is what actually worked for me. You guys brought it up.
Yeah.
I laughed hard at that montage of all the Wolverines.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
see the different variations. I thought, even going back to the '80s costume with the brown, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Showing the X Factor Wolverine, him
Yeah.
getting crucified. I was laughing because if you grew up with the comics in the '80s and '90s, you'd catch those jokes.
Yeah.
Those were very clever. But I didn't think the villain was interesting. I thought some stuff fell flat. The parody of Mad Max, just getting a Furiosa too, which I really recommend that movie.
Yes.
I was like, wow, this is not compared to George Miller. Even though it's a parody, it's like they're trying so hard to make it look cool. You're not George Miller, don't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
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 But all around though, people got what they wanted. It was a huge success at the box office, and there was a lot of enjoyable moments.
And I want to piggyback up something off Robert said. For me, the best part of that movie was when Hugh Jackman, when Wolverine told Deadpool what he felt. It's like you're a piece of shit, a piece of crap. Like you don't take anything
Yeah.
seriously. Like when they were in that car,
Mhm.
and then that emotional moment was okay. Let's fight. Like and then for nothing. Like there was no like okay. Now we're just gonna like hit each other like punching bags because you insulted me. Like
Yeah.
those words actually finally hurt me. No, they didn't.
Yeah.
Because you were joking through the whole fight. Like that was Wolverine telling Deadpool, like, I've only known you for however long, and this is what I think about you, and I'm not, and I guarantee you I'm not wrong.
Right.
And that's probably what a lot of people have felt about the character
Sure.
of
Yeah.
Wade Wilson. And then they just undercut that emotional tension with let's
Let's
fight.
fight. Yep. All right. Now, one movie that was huge in 2024, which I thought was okay, but I don't think the movie's geared toward me. I think it's geared toward a certain audience, and I'm so surprised to see my sisters really, really embrace Wicked. Like, they're not normally like big movie people, but my God, they went to go see Wicked, and that's all they can talk about. And when Christmas rolled around, they wanted the Wicked doll. Now, keep in mind, my sisters are adults, and they wanted the Wicked doll, and they wanted the Wicked popcorn bucket, and they wanted the Wicked book. And it's like, really? Like I was so surprised to see people who are not necessarily movie buffs really embraced Wicked. Like I said, I thought it was okay, and I am looking forward to the sequel next year. So far, I would imagine it's still in theaters, but so far
It
it's
is.
earned $531 million on a $150 million budget. It was released in November, and I guess one of my biggest, I have a couple of criticisms about the movie. One of my criticisms is that it felt a lot like a musical Harry Potter film, and when you consider that even the musical came out after Harry Potter, they seem to have borrowed liberally from Harry Potter. So a lot of it felt familiar, like it was set in that world. The other complaint that I have is, and again, people might come after me about this, but I thought for the most part the songs were forgettable. They weren't songs that you were humming afterward in the car on the way home, unlike a Mary Poppins or some of the classic Disney animated films where you were like immediately singing those songs after you heard them. And credit to the musical composers and writers with Disney at the time. I thought the songs in Wicked were forgettable. I mean, every once in a while, pop in my head, popular, or something like that. But for the most part, I wouldn't sit and listen to the soundtrack. I
Right.
just didn't think it was that catchy. And so my review of Wicked was, eh. And really, that's kind of my review of most of the movies that I saw in the theater in 2024 was, it was okay.
Yeah.
Did you guys
That-
get around to seeing Wicked?
Like I said, it's on my list. I have to see it. I am surprised at 135 million. They spent more on the marketing. I think the
Oh my
rumor is
God,
about
yeah.
200
Yeah.
to 300 million on the marketing. That's probably why it was everywhere. It was on you want a cell phone. There was you want fast food. There's a Target. It's there like apparel,
Oh,
whatever
yeah,
you
sure.
want. Even in like sporting venues, they were doing it. Even,
They wanted to replicate Barbie in that.
Oh, sure.
With
Yeah.
that.
And I
that
think
same
that
level.
that's geared toward the same crowd.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like 2023 to 2024 and possibly leading to 2025 is the revenge of the theater nerds.
Yeah.
No one took them seriously. And like, no, how dare you don't make fun of Glee and singing in theater? We'll show you. It'll be everywhere. It'll be in drug commercials, the Ozempic, whatever you want. Wherever you turn, everything will be a musical, and then you'll learn.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of what George said when he went to go see it, and he took his theater daughters with him, and he said they're going to sing through this whole thing, and it's like, yeah, that's for them. Let them have their fun. Let them enjoy their moment.
And this might be a topic for another time, but I'm going to ask this question, and maybe we can talk about it off screen. Is there something? There's like a class of songwriters that you don't have anymore from the 50s. I wonder if are they? Because I don't know. I'm just asking because we use Alan Menken and company, and a lot of them are leaving. Like they're shifting. So what's that new generation that comes in that writes songs that
Yeah.
are popular, and what made the songs that we hum? That we think about Mary Poppins, you think about
Yeah.
Disney, even
Yeah.
Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder
I
singing.
mean, La La
Yeah.
Land.
La La
I
Land.
still hear that song. I think.
Yeah, there were some
I
catchy
think that
songs in there,
composer's got potential. I'm sure he'll.
There you go. So like
Yeah.
some of those have to start rising up, and they're the ones that are going to like grab that mantle because John Williams
Yeah.
is going to be gone. Like Hans Zimmer will be gone soon. So
Yeah.
We still got our Alexander Desplat.
we do. So thank God.
Yes,
like, there's
right.
that transition. So that's why I'm wondering when it comes to musicals. That's where if I'm going to see a musical, I want to be memorable.
And this brings up a movie that came out years ago. They did like a reboot or a sequel to Mary Poppins, which starred what's her
Emily
name?
Blunt.
Emily
Yep.
Blunt. And I didn't hate the movie. I thought it was entertaining, but again, none of the songs stuck with me.
We talked about that, and
Yeah.
that was such a. I don't know why they did that to Emily Blunt. You can't step into the role
Yeah,
with
an
Julie Andrews.
iconic role.
That's almost impossible. You're asking the impossible.
Yeah, that's like recasting Han Solo for some reason.
Oh.
So yeah, you guys, Wicked.
No, that's not something I would spend a hay penny on.
Screaming. You're gonna say you'd scream it. Wait for it.
I was going to ask you, were your sisters into like the play, or did they
Or the
just
Wizard of
No,
Oz?
not really at all. I remember one year we went to New York around the time of my niece's birthday, and at the time I think she was 12 or 14 or something, and she got tickets to see Wicked on Broadway, and so a family friend took her to the show while the rest of us did, Times Square and all this other stuff. And then they get out of the theater, so we go to meet them at the theater. And so I turn to my niece and I'm like, "So what did you think?" And she's like, "Eh." Like she saw the Broadway show of Wicked and was like, it was okay.
Oh,
And that was exactly my response.
wait,
So,
she had that reaction for the actual
for the play,
but
the
loved
music.
the movie.
No. My niece.
Oh, niece. Oh,
I don't
okay,
even know if
gotcha.
she's seen the movie, but she saw the Broadway
Gotcha,
play.
gotcha,
And
okay.
was, but my two sisters, I don't think they've seen the play, but they love the movie. So.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just
Yeah.
curious how well the marketing worked on your sisters.
Yeah, and one thing I think that would rub someone the wrong way who saw the Broadway musical is that they're splitting that into two films,
Right.
and the weird thing that I don't understand, I just read recently that they said, well, one of the reasons we're splitting it into two films is we didn't want to cut anything out, we didn't want to leave any music out.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, the musical runs maybe 3 hours max. The first movie runs almost 3 hours.
yes,
So
that's what I'm
it's not an issue of cutting something out. Why are you stretching a 3-hour musical into two
Why was the
films?
seventh
Profit, baby.
Yeah, why was the seventh Harry Potter book turned into? Why was why was the Hobbit turned into a trilogy?
Right.
Yeah. It's the cheese, man. So, Robert, your thoughts on Wicked?
Wicked, I liked overall. Did not make my top 10. I don't think it's a great movie. I also have reservations on it. I would recommend this film to people who like musicals and such for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of enchanting moments. I actually think the first 2/3 is better than the last act. That last act didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
For me too well. I don't know if it's because I was starting to check out. I started to feel exhausted. It just also felt like a different movie. Because
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, it felt so radiant and joyful and exuberant. The first 2/3, and you get to that final act, and it gets so dark, and it
Yeah.
tonally feels different, and
You start to question who's
Yeah.
the villain and who's the hero. Oh, I didn't know you were going there.
the visuals aren't quite as strong. Some
Yeah.
stuff, the Oz stuff, just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I don't think Justin Shu has the world building vision for that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great improvement from Sam Raimi's, believe it or not. You'd think Raimi would do a great job, and he didn't. He failed
Yeah.
significantly, and this one was more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think that, what was that called? Oz the
Oz.
Great and Powerful. I
Yeah.
think it was
Yes.
miscast.
Very
That's
miscast.
the
James
biggest problem.
Franco is another thing
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But
He doesn't have the charisma to play
Right.
Oz the Great and Powerful.
Cynthia Erivo and
Rachel Weisz were in it.
Well, she was in the original one.
she
Yes,
was in the original one.
Cynthia
Oh, yeah.
was in the.
Cynthia Erivo
yeah,
in this one.
Yeah.
And also Adriana Grande.
Grande. Yeah.
Their exchanges were beautiful.
Yeah,
in this.
yeah.
There was that one
Yeah,
where
they had some nice
at
moments,
the
yeah.
party when everybody was mocking her and stuff.
Yeah.
That was a very memorable scene. But again, overstays its running time. It felt overlong. Needed to be chopped down to 30. It should have been an hour and 50-minute movie.
Yeah.
No longer than that.
Speaking of which, I mean, after watching Wicked, I decided to revisit Wizard of Oz, and I was shocked at how breezy and entertaining and watchable the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, that's a
was.
great
Like,
movie. Yes.
Wicked
Yeah.
reminded me of how great the Wizard of Oz is, and that ranks up there as one of the movies that I've seen more than probably any other movie because I've
Yeah.
been watching it since I was a
Yeah.
toddler.
Yep.
So yeah, it forced me to revisit Wizard of Oz, and I was just reminded of how much I love that
Right.
film. So I'm going to rattle off a couple other titles that I've seen this past year. This will be kind of a speed round here. Twisters. I saw Twisters in July. I don't think it holds a candle to the original. There's
No.
something about the original cast with Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt where they just brought some charisma to the film. The effects were kind of in its infancy at the time. And at the time, seeing those twisters on the screen, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And now when you watch it, you go, okay, not holding up as much. This one didn't have any star power, even though some people love the
Glenn
lead,
Powell.
Glenn
Glenn
Powell. But
Powell,
that
yeah.
was like it. Like I couldn't tell you who was in the movie outside of Glenn Powell. So that was another movie where I was like, eh. Alien Romulus. I went to the theater. I was kind of excited to see it. I thought the trailers looked pretty good. And I was into Alien Romulus probably about 30, 40 minutes into it. I was kind of enjoying it. And then, like you, Robert, I just kind of started dozing off. Like I started losing interest.
I checked out of it too.
And it
for
was just a
while. Yep.
lot of fan service. And, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. A tribute
with
to the first one.
The android.
With Ash coming
Yeah,
back. Yeah. And
Ian Holm.
and so at the end of it, it was just empty calories. Like I was like, okay, that wasn't all that impressive. The Fall Guy, people were like, oh, go see The Fall Guy. This is what Hollywood movies were all about. Again, I was like, it's based on a TV show, which the generation after me, they're like, really? It was based on a TV show?
Yeah.
Yes, Lee Majors. Come on, man. So here it is, trying to take a TV show, turn it into a film. They completely changed the premise. Where on the TV show, the Lee Majors character, I forget what his name is, he was like a bail bondsman, like he would go and hunt down fugitives or whatever. They totally got rid of that for the movie. They changed it, and I'm like, okay, I don't understand why people are loving this movie. And it actually was kind of a box office disaster. It lost approximately $50 million. So even though people were raving about this movie and going, oh, go see it, it's what movies are all about, people were not interested in it. It
was
lost
a bad
money.
story. It wasn't the greatest story. That was
True.
Yeah, no, you're
and also
absolutely
too,
right.
Let's face it, Ryan Gosling
Mm-hmm.
and Emily Blunt, the chemistry was lacking in that film.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. It's sad because you went in wanting to see star power in those two. It was no Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Now we could talk a little bit about this next one because you touched on it earlier, Robert. Furiosa, the Mad Max saga. It also was another box office disaster. It lost as much as $75 million at the box office.
That pains me.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of Fury Road. I thought it was just a lot of action, little substance. And I was like, all right, it was
Went
a
there,
spectacle. But
came back.
Yeah. You go to point A to point B and back to point A. So I wasn't a huge fan of Fury Road, but I love car movies, car chase movies, so I saw Furiosa. And the first half hour or so, I was ready to walk out. I'm like, I don't think this movie's for me. But something happened during the movie that kind of pulled me in. It like dragged me in, and I started enjoying it throughout the remainder of the film. One thing I found horribly distracting was Chris Hemsworth's nose. I don't know why he needed a big fake putty nose. I don't understand the logic behind that. It was so distracting to me. So in the end, again, was it entertaining? Yeah. Was it a great movie? And that's how I came out of the theater. Like, did you guys get around to seeing Furiosa?
I did, and I like what Robert said. It tried to be George Miller, and you can't be. You can't copy his style.
You talk about Wolverine was trying to do it.
No, I'm talking about Furiosa.
Well, George Miller directed Furiosa.
Oh no, but what I mean is it lacked it lacked something compared to like Mad Max Fury Road.
Okay, well, we're going to disagree. I think I like. We'll talk about it in a minute. I like Furiosa a lot more than Fury Road, and I'll get to that.
I agree. Yeah.
There was something like when I was always comparing it to Mad Max Fury Road. I'm like, what? Is there something that I don't know if it was almost like the same beats, almost to a certain extent.
Yeah,
there are some.
Yeah,
sure.
And also there was that undercurrent where they're trying to sell hard that she's the main character. It's all about her. Then just call it Furiosa.
Mm-hmm.
That bottom subtitle bothered me, like a Mad Max film, like that. You can't leave him alone.
It's a marketing thing.
Yeah. It's like that's the only way they'll come watch it. No, if you just call it Furiosa, let them come and see it. Let them make the connection.
Yeah.
Like when you say a Mad Max film, it's like you have to put his name in there.
Yeah.
It's like otherwise they won't get it
in that world. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I didn't have a problem with it. I watched. I thought the performances were great. That the opening, the first half of like establishing like how she gets there, she gets taken. I was like, okay, you mentioned in Mad Max, in Fury Road. I guess I have to see how that her evolution. It was believable, like how she gets to Charlize Theron.
And that's where I think Furiosa has an advantage over Fury Road is that I think it had more of a story than Fury Road did.
Yep.
Like I actually wanted to know how she got there.
Yeah.
So
Andrew,
I really liked it. And I wish I would have seen it in the theater.
Oh, you didn't see it?
No.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
saw
a
it
movie that needs to be seen on a big screen.
I saw it on Max once it was streaming, and I absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, I love Fury Road, but like everyone says, there's no character development. There's very little dialogue. There's not much of a story.
Yeah.
And I like Furiosa a lot better. The thing about Chris Hemsworth, and I don't know if I read this somewhere, if it's my own idea. The reason why I think they use prosthetics is because otherwise he would look a lot like Thor.
Yeah.
And I don't think George Miller wanted people to think of Thor. When they wanted to see, he wanted them to see a villain.
But the question is, why cast Chris Hemsworth then? Like,
he's so damn good in it, though.
He is. He's good. and the name, and people
Yeah.
say, "Oh, Chris Hemsworth is in this." Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a big draw.
Sure.
But then you're sitting there going, why is he wearing this? No, it's like, Chris Hemsworth is in it. He's good at everything he does.
Then just scar him up or give him like a Phantom of the Opera mask.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, like, yeah, then like, yeah, go with it.
Yeah.
So this movie was number 5 on my top 10. I really liked it.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, I thought there were some really cool things that they did. And again, me being sort of a Hollywood car buff, I love that visual of the chariot with the 3 motorcycles
Yeah.
like pulling
Oh,
the
yeah.
chariot.
Yeah.
I'm like, who designed that? That was spectacular. And they did have some really great stunt pieces and chase pieces that I really enjoyed.
Mhm.
So Robert, we already know you liked Furiosa. What did you like about Furiosa?
I absolutely loved it. I thought it was expertly directed. The visuals, the set pieces, the world building, all of it was first rate. And I thought the story came through better than Fury Road.
Yeah.
I really think so.
Right.
Now, oddly enough, I actually ended up liking Fury Road much better because
After seeing
it filled in all the stuff that I wanted.
yeah.
That, yeah.
Because when I was watching Fury Road, I'm like, why are we watching this tedious sequence over and over? It's just a long chase scene.
Yeah.
And I got exhausted from it. My patience ran through. I was like,
I agree.
I checked out after a while, and then I watched Furiosa. It's like, oh, this is who she is.
Yeah.
Now you go back in Fury Road, and I'm like, this is awesome. It'd be amazing to watch it as a double feature.
I agree.
I'd go to the theater and watch it
Yeah.
5-6 hours with an intermission of that back to
Yeah,
back.
if you
I
start
think
with
that'd be
Furiosa,
great.
if you start Furiosa and then end with Fury Road,
Sure.
that you'd be like, oh,
Yeah. And I thought
I agree.
the villains were more menacing this time.
Mhm.
I thought we got to understand that world more and its feudalism.
Yeah.
And my God, it just felt like a spaghetti western done Aussie style.
Yeah.
I really felt like a Sergio Leone got resurrected and through George Miller, and then together they made the spaghetti western Aussie movie,
Yeah.
and it was awesome. And then at the climax, oh, my jaw was dropping.
Yeah.
And it did
yeah.
look great in the IMAX.
Yeah.
Impeccable visuals. It didn't
Yeah.
make my top 10. It almost did.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was my runners up.
Yeah.
And if it was probably like 11, 12. I love Dune 2 as well.
which is
You
all,
know, and it came, those were my 2 favorite mainstream blockbuster movies of the year would be Dune 2 and Furiosa.
yeah.
Right. Right.
Which is
go ahead.
because they put marketing into Furiosa, so its box office performance
wanna
is still kind of weird. Yeah,
The reason
Yeah.
why I don't think it did well is because Charlize Theron. If Charlize Theron came back in some way, I think it would have done better. And if they had Mad Max, even if it was Tom Holland or Mel Gibson,
Yeah.
audiences didn't go see it because they're like, oh, we don't like it when people recast things of a movie.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy. Yeah.
Hardy.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom Hardy,
Yeah.
Mel
Yeah.
Gibson, if they would have came back,
Yeah.
it would have worked.
Yeah. And he did have. I mean, this is spoiler alert. Which movie did he have a cameo in? Was it Fury Road
Yeah.
or was it Furiosa? Because there's a scene of the
Oh
car.
no, in Furiosa.
It was
Yeah.
Furiosa.
So
Okay.
it's
So you
a
see him
cameo in
Yeah.
long distance or so. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of cool to see that
Okay.
little Easter egg there. Like, oh, there's the car. That was pretty cool.
Mhm.
All right, I want to talk about one movie, and we're going to take the gloves off here. I think we're going to be swinging at each other for this one because we did this via Facebook texting, and I need to bring it up because it was kind of a big deal when it came out. It had perfect timing. It came out
I knew
just
you did.
before. It came out just before Halloween, and so I think people were looking for a Halloween movie to go see. And so after, gosh, how many years went by since the first one? Almost 40 years since the
Yeah,
first one.
35.
35
Something like-
years.
something like that.
They bring back
37.
Beetlejuice. Instead of calling it Beetlejuice 2, they call it Beetlejuice, and I'm sure there's going to be a Beetlejuice at some point.
Sure.
For some reason, I never got around to seeing it in the theater. It did pretty well. It earned $451 million on a $100 million budget. Tim Burton came back to direct, music by Danny Elfman, so it had all the elements. Michael Keaton comes back as Beetlejuice. We see a grown-up Winona Ryder. Catherine O'Hara comes back, and then there's some new actors and characters, including Jenna Ortega, who is kind of following in the footsteps of like Christina Ricci and stuff, playing those
Yeah.
weird, eccentric roles. So even though I didn't see it in the theater, I finally got around to watching it on TV, and I freaking hated it. Hated it. It did not have that Tim Burton feel, where Tim Burton always kind of, whether it's Edward Scissorhands or whatever, there's this quirky, funny feel that he brings to movies, a bright color palette, and you're laughing and stuff like that. I thought this movie lacked any humor at all. I think the only time I laughed out loud, and I don't even know if that's a correct term, is when Beetlejuice kind of tricked the teenage boy into signing the document or whatever, and then they reveal what was on the contract or whatever. I kind of like air escaped out of my nose, like, okay, that was kind of clever. But I never like laughed out loud during the film, and I'm like, where is the humor in this film? The first hour or so is about death and darkness, and I'm like, what is happening here? Where's the humor? And despite the fact that it's called Beetlejuice, throughout most of the film, Beetlejuice was like an afterthought. He would pop up occasionally and then disappear for long stretches and pop up and disappear. And I talked to a buddy of mine. I'm like, did you feel the same way about Beetlejuice that I did? And he goes, yes. He goes, there were all these ideas on the screen that led to nothing. Like his ex-wife, Beetlejuice's ex-wife, kept popping up in the film. For what purpose? Ultimately, she served no purpose. Yeah. The Willem Dafoe character, who's playing an actor pretending to be a cop, what purpose did he serve? He served no purpose in the film. And so there were all these things being thrown that, I don't know if there's probably a small army of writers who all contributed things. And I thought it was just a bunch of movies thrown into a blender and put on the screen that lacked the charm and the humor and the fun of the original Beetlejuice. And so I actually stopped the movie halfway through, and then I'm like, okay, let's finish it the next day. So I finished it, and I'm like, I hated it. I just absolutely hated it. Am I on an island here, Nick?
No, I'm on your island.
Okay.
In fact, I'm on your continent. Because that I almost felt like, this is my own personal conspiracy theory. It was meant, probably originally pitched to be like a Wednesday, like it was going to be like 10 episodes, because there were so many storylines in there, and they said no, it's actually a movie, and they kept all the storylines, so none of them made sense. They were all under, like, the kid tricking Wednesday, her daughter, the Beetlejuice's ex-wife, which I never asked for.
Yeah.
Lydia's dad. That thing, I was like, why are we doing this?
That served no purpose.
You could just kill him off screen and then let it be like that. Whatever, it happened, because we all know what happened with the actor. So, oddly enough, the screen time for Beetlejuice was similar to like the first Beetlejuice, but there I knew he was this presence because, they sold it. Baldwin and Davis sold it. Like, oh, there's this, like, they know, like, don't summon this guy. He's the specter that's hanging. Don't bring. And so when he comes there, it's impactful. Here it was like, okay. And they undercut Lydia. Like, they turned Lydia, who was this weak-kneed lady that compared to like the firebrand that I saw.
Yeah.
In the original. So, I didn't like it.
I'm gonna put on like my studio executive hat. I just read a fascinating book about the history of 20th Century Fox, and I read that most of the movies that were produced at 20th Century Fox all passed through Zanuck, Darryl Zanuck. And they said he was a terrible writer, but he was great at looking at a script and ripping pages out. Take this out, this out, this out. So if I was a studio executive and Beetlejuice came in front of me and I had a chance to look at it, I would have kept the storyline about the daughter, Astrid, I think was her name.
Yeah.
Like having that romantic connection with the neighbor, only to find out that he's a ghost. And then the big twist that, he's trying to trick her into trading places.
Save the daughter. Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Now, when Lydia finds out that her daughter is in peril, she recruits Beetlejuice to help her do battle with this character. If you would have stripped everything away told that story, I would have been all over that. But there was just so much unnecessary fluff in this movie. I wanted to rip pages out. Take this out, take this out, take this out. Andrew, did you get around to seeing it?
Yeah, I saw it with my sister and brother-in-law opening night. I thought I have similar feelings as with Wolverine and Deadpool. It was fun watching it in a packed theater. I thought there were a lot of like funny parts. I laughed quite a few times. But when Nick said maybe this would have worked better as a 10-part series, I'm like, Oh wow, yeah. Like if it was an 8 or 10-part Netflix or Max series.
Yeah.
Because there was too much going on.
Yeah,
Like,
you're absolutely right.
did Monica Bellucci need to be in it?
No.
As his wife
In a series, maybe.
in a series, yeah. I would say if Tim Burton would have brought in another producer or another writer to help him focus it
Yeah,
and spend another 6 months on it, it would have been a much better movie.
I agree.
Is it something that I'll rewatch? Probably not. It was, like I said, though, I kind of disagree with you. I thought it did have a similar amount of comedy and quirkiness as the first one. And I think it still is in the same spirit of the first one. But there's a lot of stuff that
Some of
could
it,
have been tweaked up.
some of it felt forced, and again, we're using the term fan service. So let's go back to the first one. They're having that seance or whatever, and they bust out into the Banana Boat song. And I remember that being so out of left field and so goofy and funny, and people were singing Deo as they walk out of the theater. So in Beetlejuice, they do a little tribute to it at the funeral, which I thought was odd. And that's another thing I need to talk about, the extreme lengths they went to not to show the actor who had gotten into some trouble off camera.
Oh yeah.
So
was
he
kinda clever,
appeared like
though.
in a photo, but they had a shark like bite off his head.
Animated, wasn't it? Animated sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so where was I going? Oh, so now they pay tribute to the Banana Boat song, but now they're like, well, we need to do something like that in this movie. So what do? They find the stupidest, quirkiest song they can find. That someone left the cake out in the rain and the MacArthur Park song. And they play the entire damn song and have this elaborate dance number to it. And I was praying for it to end. I'm like, it didn't have the same feel of the randomness of the Banana Boat song. Now it felt forced, like we have to do this again. So they throw it in there.
Right.
And I was ready to hit the fast forward button.
Revenge
Like,
of the
let's
Theater
do it.
Nerds. It's everywhere.
Now, Robert, you and I kind of got into it on Facebook. You said, well, I didn't hate it, but what's your recollection of Beetlejuice?
Still stand by it. I think it's a messy movie.
Mhm.
I think it's very hit or miss. I think it misses a lot. It really does, and it is overstuffed.
Yeah.
It's oversaturated, and there are way too many characters. I will say though, it did generate some belly laughs for me. I was laughing quite a few times, and the laugh that I did like was Justin Theroux was the menacing husband. I like Theroux too; he's a good actor. But seeing him get punched with that big glove,
Goes flying.
that was hysterical.
Yeah.
And there are other laughs too. Just seeing Michael Keaton on screen each time was just.
Well, again, if there would have been more of
It needed more of that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's so charismatic. He was moving a little slower than he did 35 years ago, but he's still Michael Keaton. He's still Beetlejuice.
I mean, we don't need him to do Matrix stunts, but I mean,
Right.
and
Well,
the other the storyline, Lydia's first husband, like what's her face? What's Astrid's dad? Like they crammed that storyline in there too because
Yeah.
he
They did.
ended up showing up. I'm like,
They did. There was way too much going on. It's just a chaotic movie. But the first Beetlejuice is chaotic.
Yeah.
Far superior though.
yeah,
You brought up the daughter subplot. I liked it too. It
Yeah.
needed to stay. It could have had more resonance if they would have focused on them more. However,
I agree.
it was the same retreat of Frozen Empire. There's the same story in the film where
Yeah.
their daughter falls in love with another ghost,
Mhm.
Yep.
goes down a different realm. I'm like, are
Interesting.
they sharing the same ideas? Are they borrowing, copying people?
remember
Right?
two
Yeah,
volcano
yeah.
movies, two Mars movies
Right.
in the
Yeah.
90s. Like there's
Exactly.
someone gets an idea, like I got an idea.
Yeah.
Two Truman Capote movies
Yes.
with
Yeah.
Capote and Infamous that year.
My theory has always been that
Asteroid movies.
there's some
Right, yeah.
script writer who pitches a script to various studios. They all say no, and as soon as he closes the door behind them, they get on their phone and go, "Give me my writers in here. I have an idea." And I think that's why you're seeing similar ideas pop up from different studios because
Two Frankenstein movies coming up in 2025.
Yeah,
exactly. So
But Beetlejuice is pretty forgettable.
unfortunately,
Yep.
but I really wanted to like it, and I'll probably see the
And
third
people
one.
went because of them. Like I said,
And
if
it was
you give
Halloween,
them a
yeah.
reason, they'll go. But then you
Yeah.
trick them with nostalgia and fan service, and they're going to get pissed.
Yeah. Now, there's one more movie I want to talk about before we go around the table. Technically, this is a 2023 movie because it came out late 2023. It was in limited release. It was very difficult to find here in the U.S. And then they re-released it as Godzilla -1 minus color at the beginning of the year. And so that was my first opportunity to see it in black and white. And I freaking love this movie. It wasn't just a fun movie. I thought it was a great movie with the storyline about the kamikaze pilot who didn't do his duty, so he's branded a coward, and then has a chance for redemption to take on Godzilla. And I'm like, this movie is far better than it needs to be, and it was enormously entertaining. And on a small budget, it had incredible effects. Gut punch whenever Godzilla unleashed his fiery breath, you felt it. Like you felt the real world consequences, because there'd be a mushroom cloud. And this is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. And it made a ton of money on a $10 to $15 million budget.
Wow.
Made an awful lot of money. It only was released on Blu-ray and DVD in November of 2024. It took a while to
This was competing.
reach.
They have that clause where they can't compete with
Yeah,
the Hollywood
because there was another
versions.
crappy version.
Yeah.
Started.
Yeah, and so it did win the Academy Award for effects, and I'm convinced that there was some red tape that prevented it from being submitted as Best Foreign Film, but I'm convinced that had it been submitted as Best Foreign Film, it would have won. I thought it was that good.
Wow.
So that's the last movie that I saw this past year that I really, really liked a lot. So let's go around the table. Nick, what am I leaving out? When you think back of 2024, what movie jumps out at you?
Godzilla -1.
Yeah.
I saw a handful of other movies far lower than my normal average of what I see, but Godzilla -1 stood out there. I went in with very low expectations because I purposely did that so that I'd be pleasantly surprised, and I was blown out of the water. It was the first ever Godzilla movie where I didn't count the minutes until Godzilla shows up. I'm like, all right, get all the human stuff done.
I mean, honestly, it is a 2023 movie, though. It came out in December.
Yeah,
I saw it in the theater in December.
Yeah. But
They
it
did
was a
re-release.
very limited release here, so it was very.
I don't know. Got over 800 theaters. It was in the top.
Really?
Three. Yeah, it was in the
800
It was in
theaters
the
in the
top
US?
3 that weekend.
It didn't last long in theaters. That
Yeah.
was the
because
biggest
of the clause.
because of the clause. It was
Right.
like Godzilla
Yeah.
and
Yes.
King Kong Frozen Empire or whatever empire. Again, another empire.
Yeah. No, you're right. It came out in
Yeah.
December, but for whatever reason, I never was able to see it when
Yeah.
it came out in 23. So I guess the movie I'm talking about is -1 or minus color, which is a 2024.
Yeah, the
movie.
black and white they re-released.
Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
a fantastic movie. I cared about the human characters and then I enjoyed the story. Like all of them coming together to fight this menace, and Godzilla was this overhanging thing. Like, okay, everything revolves around this guy.
Yeah.
This thing that's coming, and how are you going to handle it? And the story of the pilot, I kept saying, like, man, how many shots can this guy take? And whoever that actor is, I keep forgetting. If there is a Japanese version of the Oscars, give it to him. And he should have gotten nominated.
They do have the Asian awards.
The Asian Award?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not sure.
If
how
he's
it
not
is, but-
nominated, don't have him.
Yeah.
Because that guy, his performance was fantastic.
It was. It's kind of like, I mean, I don't want to compare it to Casablanca, but the similarity with Casablanca is Casablanca was made to be like a B movie, and they were like, all right, let's just bring in Michael Curtiz to direct it, and we'll shoot it in black and white and get it out. And then it turned out to be like this masterpiece, and I think that's what happened with Godzilla -1. It's like, it's a low-budget Godzilla movie, and it was... I'm sure the director, as they're doing takes, are like, "Holy shit, you're knocking this out of the park!"
Because the
And
story
it was
is
so
good.
much better.
And I think it's also a shot across the bow to every over-budgeted special effects.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
'Cause they're
there's
like,
a
wait
lot
minute, they
more
did
for a
what?
lot less.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
You're
I
absolutely
guarantee you, they're
Yes.
probably looking through the books like, do we have to spend 150 million?
Right. I mean, when you think that this was made for 10 to 15 million, and Inside Out 2
And it wasn't AI.
200 million
Or
to produce.
The
it's
Kong versus Godzilla movie. That was probably 200 million.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was. It absolutely was.
Yeah.
It was, and again, it was like, oh, why? I don't care. I didn't care about that movie's so annoying to me. And shouldn't
Andrew, when you think back to 2024, what movie jumps out at you as 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when we're doing a retrospective, you'll be like, I remember 2024. What jumps out?
My number one is
210. Start with 10.
Oh, I don't know how much time we have, but I'll
We could run them by real quick.
so Civil War, directed and written by Alex Garland.
Yeah.
Great director. It's basically America probably 8 years from now.
Yeah.
In real life. No, it won't. No, it won't be that bad. It'll be worse. But no, it was technically excellent. The sound, the cinematography, the acting was awesome. I saw it opening night. The bullets you think they're whizzing by you when they're in firefights and stuff, and it was extremely loud to the point where I was starting to like cover my ears. And I play the drums. I'm used to loud music.
Yeah.
It was intense. A critique of it was that they don't show their hints, but they don't really show the reason why the Civil War is going on. But I think that was done on purpose, and I agree with Alex Garland for making this choice. Is he didn't want to? He wanted the viewer to fill in the blanks.
Oh, sure.
And he wanted the point of view to be through the 4 journalists.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are like, no, I wanted to know what was really going on. Why did California and Texas join together and then march on Washington? Right. We want to know why.
Yeah.
Well, it's like there are hints along the way of how President Nick Offerman was using drone strikes on American citizens, abolished the FBI, was running for a 3rd term, or
killed Antifa. The Antifa massacre we
heard
heard about.
Yeah, so there are hints along the way that he was, a right-wing fascist. But on a technical level, this movie is brilliant. I know Rob saw it. Didn't you think, especially when they get caught in the firefight with the guys in the buildings, the one guy gets shot in the stomach and they pull him off to the side, and that's when Kaylee Sweeney, she first gets, close-up shots being in a firefight. That scene was intense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is Alex Garland, who wrote 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
And that was a very dystopian future. Here, this is a dystopian version of the U.S. in Pearl. But yeah, there's a lot of very, very visceral moments in this.
Did you get to see it?
I have not, but the part about California and Texas being on the same side is that's the more fictional aspect of it.
Very fictional. Very fictional.
California and Texas
But let's not forget, though, Houston had elected the first lesbian mayor.
That's true.
So when you think Houston, you got to think lesbian.
Interesting. Now, I never got around to seeing it, and this goes back to what we said earlier about what the viewer brings to the theater. I didn't want to subject myself to it. The news just stresses me out. It causes anxiety, and I'm learning that the less I subject myself to it, the better I feel. So I just can't do that to myself.
I completely agree where you're coming from. There are other things too that I have to just like, okay, I can't listen to this or I can't watch it, for whatever reason, or maybe other reasons. But no, I understand why people wouldn't want to watch it. I was describing the plot to my mom like a week ago.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, let's watch it. I'm like, on second thought, no, you should.
There's some bleak moments in it.
Yeah. It's like realistic. That's the thing, and it's like you don't want to dwell on this. But as a 2-hour film, a spectacle, as a piece of work, it is. I absolutely loved it.
Interesting.
So
right.
I got to separate the two. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I want to make sure we save time to look ahead to 2025. So give us the rapid-fire version of the rest of your list.
Nosferatu, which everybody knows. I know Nick hated it. Nick did not like it. I saw Strange Darling with this dude.
Yeah, it's a horror film.
Would you consider it a horror?
I mean, doesn't have monsters or ghouls in it, but it's pretty grisly.
It's gory. I call it a thriller.
Sure, it's got elements of it.
Okay.
Very under the radar, but expertly made. Dune Part 2, which I liked way better than the first one.
That's what a lot of people are saying, and it's probably an Oscar contender from what I'm hearing.
Yes. Long Legs, starring Nicolas Cage with a full 5 or 6 minutes on screen. This is a creep fest. It is, but it was directed by Anthony Perkins' son.
Oh wow. Okay.
Excellent movie. Very low key, kind of slow, getting things going.
All right, it's on the list. Movie.
Nick, I think you'd really like it. Furiosa was my number 5. Just real quick, my favorite band is called the Mars Volta. The singer and guitarist, somebody made a documentary about them. They were friends since high school. They formed a band called At the Drive-In, which I don't know, you might have heard of. They were going to become the next big thing in like 2000. Then the band broke up. Anyway, that was like a personal thing. I don't know if very many people saw it. Late Night with the Devil, which takes place in the 70s. It's like a late night talk show. A dude the
found footage genre.
It's like a found footage documentary style. Most of the footage is as if it was like a studio camera.
Yeah.
And then all this weird evil stuff starts happening on set. Excellent movie. Number 2, also saw with this guy, Anora. It's getting a lot of buzz. It didn't win anything at the Golden Globes, which I was very surprised. So same guy who did Florida Project. Sean Baker. Great romantic comedy. The main star, Mikey Madison, she's going to go on to do big stuff.
She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? She was
She had a very
Manson
small role.
followers. Yeah.
Also with Kaylee Spaney and Margaret Qualley, who was in my number 1 movie, The Substance. Really far out there, body horror. Would you call it a kind of a dark comedy satire?
Is that the one with Demi Moore, who's getting a lot of accolades?
She won the Golden Globe.
Yeah.
Joe, this is not your movie at all.
I think most of what you just rattled off is not my cup of tea.
But this movie, it is one of the most wild, unexpected things. And that's coming from me. What I love these type of movies, these off the wall, out of nowhere movies. It was amazing. And that is my number 1.
Interesting. Robert, I think I know your number 1 film. I know you've been just raving about Anora. So is it safe to assume Anora is your clear-cut favorite from 2024?
Let me cut down my 10 to 1 real quick.
All right.
I'll surprise you. And I'll bore you guys. Number 10's a Turkish film.
Okay.
3 hours and 15 minutes. Let me tell you, though, it is, look at subtitles, Turkish movie. I'm not watching that. Let me tell you, it's engaging. It really is.
I have no problem with subtitles.
It's about a teacher who, real quick, he just, very cynical guy, very pompous. He's very smart, but he meets a woman. She kind of changes his worldview.
Okay.
She challenges his pessimism. He's very nihilistic. And he's also under investigation for misconduct as a teacher. Going to find out he didn't do it in the film, but it ends up being a very rewarding movie. It's very emotionally satisfying. I got a Criterion. It's on the Criterion channel. I got to see it at the New York Film Festival in 2023. I saved it because it got its theatrical release in April. About Dry Grasses by Turkish filmmaker Nuri Bilge Ceylan. He's a great artist. Highly recommend it.
It has a little bit of a holdovers in there.
There's some of that, yeah.
Like Paul Giamatti's character sounds like the way.
Sure, there's a lot of similarities with that. Yep. Number 9 is a beautiful. I think you'd like this movie, Joe. I really do. Check The Old Oak out by Ken Loach. He's a British director. It's about a bartender. It takes place in 2015, 2016 Britain when they had the Syrian refugee crisis. The Syrians come in the community. There's a lot of xenophobia. There's a lot of hatreds. He opens his bar up and makes a community out of it. He says, "Let's eat together."
This is around Brexit time?
This is around Brexit time.
Okay.
And you see the conspiracy theories. You see the hatred that online forums. He stands up to it. It's just a kind movie. It's never preachy. It's never didactic. It's just a great, wholesome, poignant film with a lot of earnesty. And I think more people need to see it.
It's on the list.
What's it? Give me the title again.
The Old Oak.
The Old
Oak.
The Old Oak.
Is that the name of the venue, the pub?
That's the name of the bar. Yep.
All right, that intrigues me.
Yep. The number movie that I think you guys might like too is called The Room Next Door. It opens next week, and I saw that at the New York Film Festival. It's a great movie about friendship. It's Pedro Almodovar's first English-speaking movie, first movie to take place in America. He's the director of Talk to Her, all about my mother, Volvera, with Penelope Cruz. Made a lot of his movies in Spain. This is his first American film. It's about Tilda Swinton. She's dying. She's got a very close friend that she goes to. They're estranged friends, and she kind of asks her, "Hey, can you be there for me in my last days?" I won't spoil anything, but it's just a very tender movie about friendship.
Okay.
Great movie about friendship, absolutely. Seven's Challengers by Luca Guadagnino. This is a great sports movie.
Yeah.
It is. It's so expertly directed. It actually feels like a tennis match.
Is this the one with Zendaya?
Yeah, Zendaya's in it. Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor just won the Golden Globe for Best Score. The score is amazing in it.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of great energy on it. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
If you want to look for a streaming movie, challengers is the way to go. You might like the energy of this film.
I brought up the trailer when I saw you list it, and so I see the tennis aspect in the trailer, and I'm like, okay. And then it takes a turn, and I'm like, I started grimacing, like, I don't know about this.
It's tame. It's tame. It's tame. Yes.
I mean, did you see E2 Mama Tommy in?
I don't know.
No, yeah.
No.
It's like a Jules and Jim
Yeah.
menage a trois relationship movie. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Six is another movie about friendship that I think everybody in here would like. A Real Pain. I really think that
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg, it's the second movie he directed.
Yeah.
He stars in it. He plays a guy who's a cousin in the film,
Culkins.
played by Kieran Culkin.
Yeah.
They're two cousins that go out to Poland. They visit their grandmother, this old spot where she grew up. She survived the Holocaust. They go and see where their roots are.
Mhm.
They patch their old wounds up. It's a catharsis movie. It's a beautifully written, beautifully scripted and acted movie. Kieran Culkin certainly deserves that Oscar for best supporting actor.
Dark horse for it?
I think he's a front runner.
Front runner? Okay.
It's really an impeccable performance.
Yeah.
Number 5 is a movie that I don't think you guys might not like. Andrew might like it. You might like it. Not your cup of tea. It's a crazy movie. It's called Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World. It's a Romanian movie, but it's got a good concept. And real quick, the movie is about a woman who works for a company that's outsourcing things, and then the company pretty much injured a lot of people. A lot of people got sick. They got injured on the job. She gets hired in to do good PR. She goes and interviews the people, and they get paid to interview the people that get interviewed. Real quick, though, it's a satire. It kind of just condemns corporatism and how Romania went from this communist country, transitioned into this rampant capitalist country, and people are still suffering. And it's a great film, a lot of great satire. Uwe Boll's in it.
Oh,
Playing himself.
no,
They take jabs at him.
Oh, I can't. I'd see it just for that.
Number four is The Beast. Great movie. French film, yes, they do. It's kind of like Cloud Atlas. There's 3 structures. It takes place in 1910. It's actually based on the Henry James novel, The Beast in the Jungle. The first story takes place in 1910 during the French floods. The second film takes place in 2014 during the rise of Trump. There's an incel guy. He treats women horribly. He targets women. He spies on them. And he's spying this woman played by Léa Seydoux. And then the third story, they reconnect again in 2024 or 2044. And it's a world dominated by AI.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a film about not evolution, but reincarnation. So you see these souls travel 100 years and they reconnect, and the romance is doomed each time due to these tech.
I watched it last week, and it was very unique movie, very interesting. Reminded me a little bit of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. What was the other one I mentioned? Code 46.
Code 46, yes,
Which
with some David Lynch stuff going on.
Yep.
3 is a Japanese film called Evil Does Not Exist. It's about a community that gets co-opted by a corporation coming in, drilling out their stuff. Their water gets polluted, and then you have the citizens in that village kind of stand up and say, hey, we don't want you doing that. And it kind of shows the tragedy that occurs from that. 2 is The Brutalist. That's my second favorite movie of the year.
And that's the Adrian Brody
Brody
one.
movie.
Yeah.
Sure, it's 3.5 hours long. It does have a 15-minute intermission. Every minute is worth this. This is a film that I was happy to see in the theater. I was like, wow, if I grew up in the 70s, if I was alive in the 70s, this is what cinema would be like. That's the feeling I got watching it. It's like, wow, this is my Godfather. This is my Godfather 2. It was epic in scope. It captures the immigrant experience quite well. It's so greatly acted. Adrian Brody deserves that Oscar. I hope he gets it. I think it deserves Best Picture. If it's my second favorite wins, I will not gripe. And my favorite's Nora. Beautiful, beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Great movie about redemption. Great character depth in that film. Yes, it's like a Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
But it's a grittier version of Pretty Woman.
Probably the original ending that they intended for Pretty Woman, where she doesn't get the guy and gets left out on the street. That's what they originally were planning.
If Martin Scorsese directed Pretty Woman,
Yeah.
this is what it would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see it, Nick?
No.
Oh.
Because it's on my list, especially
Yeah.
when I saw the
It's
trailers
funny.
for it.
It's romantic. It's funny. It's vulgar at times, but at the end of the day, it wins you over.
Yeah.
You really care about these characters.
Watching the trailer, it kind of reminded me of like when a movie, like say a Disney movie, lapses into the public domain and then people take it and turn it into a horror film or whatever. When you mentioned Pretty Woman, it's like that's exactly what it feels like. Like Pretty Woman fell into the public domain.
Right.
Somebody took it and said, I'm going to do a grittier, realistic version of Pretty Woman. That's what it feels like. It's gritty. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we bring you in, Robert, to class up the joint.
The Old Oak. That'd be your movie. The Old Oak.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna punch that up. That's I really loved Ted Lasso because it was all about positivity and
Yep.
uplifting and stuff, and I
Yes.
just needed that so much.
Yep.
So if you're saying that this is a positive, uplifting movie, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
All right, let's spend the last 20 minutes or so talking about what we're looking forward to in 2025. Now, there was I don't know if it's a meme, but there was sort of a top 10 list of movies to look forward to in 2025, and all of them were superhero films and reboots and remakes, and I'm like, God damn it, not another year of all this stuff. But doing my own research, and I recommend this to people, do your own research. There's a lot more than these superhero films coming out in 2025. There's a lot
Sure.
of intriguing films that are coming out.
Such as?
Well, I have these down as in sort of chronological order, and I'm just going to kind of throw them out. You may have seen the trailer for this one film. It's already started showing on television. It's going to be coming out later this week, I think. Better Man, which is a biopic or biopic, I don't know how to pronounce it, about UK musician Robbie Williams. The thing is he's depicted as a CGI chimpanzee throughout the film. I don't know what to make of that. I'm going to wait and see what people say about this film.
What?
Yeah.
I actually had the opportunity to see that a few weeks ago, and I was so busy during holidays, and I skipped on the screening. But I'm curious.
It's
Yeah.
gotten good reviews. It's like got a 90-something on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone says Nosferatu was great too.
You were in a bad mood when you saw Nosferatu. There's no other explanation for it.
That's what you brought.
It was just a crappy story. I tell you, but if I had a horror movie, I'd have Robert Eggers directed.
Nick, you were relieved it was in my top 10.
I will write you a love letter later.
Another trailer that's getting heavy rotation on television, coming out January 17th, Wolfman. Universal taking another stab at using their what's the Rogues Gallery of Monsters.
Butter knife
They
with.
did Invisible Man, which was critically acclaimed back in 2020. Now they're doing Wolfman, and it sounds like it's an original storyline about a father who is infected and has a wife and daughter or whatever. So it looks very intriguing. I'm curious about
Budget.
that. What's that?
That's why they did it. It's a nice cheap budget.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah,
takes place in a
exactly.
farmhouse.
They
3 or
own
4
the
people.
rights to it. Yeah. Again, I'm suffering superhero burnout, so I don't know if I'm all that excited about Captain America: Brave New World. I'm sure I'll see it at some point. I just don't have high hopes for it. I don't know. That's just me. Now, you guys are gonna laugh. The movie that I'm looking forward to most so far in 2025, it just so happens to come out the same weekend as Captain America, is Paddington in Peru. I don't know if we've discussed on this podcast before, but the first Paddington movie I saw was Paddington 2, and it was getting rave reviews, high scores on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like, I got to see what this is about. 100%.
That's a red flag right there.
Paddington 2 instantly became one of my all-time favorite movies ever. It cracked my 100 favorite movie list. So I am intrigued. The trailer looks awesome, looks hysterical. So I'm fired up about Paddington. One movie that does not look good to me, they're doing some weird stuff with this. March 21st, Snow White, starring West Side Story's Rachel Zegler as Snow White, Gal Gadot as the evil queen. What bugs me about the movie, and I see a lot of people showing their racist side when they critique this movie, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that. What drives me crazy is the trailer turns it into some sort of action flick, like Snow White's going to lead this revolt against the evil queen, and I'm like,
Did we
what
do
the
this
hell is
already
that?
with Kristen Stewart?
Oh, yeah.
Was it? Yeah, I don't know. But
With Chris Hemsworth? We already did this. If it's
I know
if
you're
it's an
talking
action movie,
yeah, I that has me scratching my head, and I just have a feeling Snow White's going to tank. Another superhero film coming out May 5th is Thunderbolts, and Harrison Ford is going to be in both of those movies, The Brave New World and Thunderbolts, as Thaddeus Ross. They're finally getting around to wrapping up the Mission Impossible franchise on May 23rd, The Final Reckoning.
may it end.
I was angry when I saw part 1 and they ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm like, come on, man, stop wringing the money out of me.
It's
man.
the last
It's
one
so
that he's doing.
frustrating.
Just
Yeah,
let him have it.
just end it. May 30th, Karate Kid Legends. I'm kind of intrigued by this, that Jackie Chan partners up with Ralph Macchio.
Even though half of it is not, it's kung fu, not karate. I can't besides
There we go. June 6th, another movie I'm kind of intrigued about, Ballerina, which is a spinoff from the John Wick series, starring Ana de Armas. When she popped up in the John Wick movie, I was like, okay, I would love to learn her backstory. And sure enough, they're going to do it. It's set between John Wick 3 and John Wick 4. A movie that you guys have already talked about on this podcast that you're looking forward to on June 20th, 28 years later.
Yes.
Danny Boyle back to direct that.
I'm going to clap in advance for that.
Alex Garland
It's
wrote your Civil War. He wrote that too.
Yeah, Alex Garland wrote
Wrote it.
this movie. So
Yeah.
it's
Civil War.
we got to go see.
One movie that, boy, it's going to be tough to get me in the theater for this one because, again, I'm sort of burnt out on this. July 2nd, 4th of July weekend, summer tent pole, Jurassic World Rebirth. Scarlett Johansson's in it, so on one hand, I'm like, okay, I wouldn't mind her seeing running around getting chased by dinosaurs.
Right.
But, boy, I'm like, why can't they get this franchise right, man?
So the one positive thing that probably has going for it is it was directed by Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One,
Okay.
which I think is
and Godzilla.
and the 2014 Godzilla.
yeah.
So that gives me some hope that it'll be a good movie.
We'll see.
that bounces out.
Monsters.
Rogue One was good. Godzilla. And,
Yeah.
It wasn't bad.
He did that Monsters debut. That was his first movie, Monsters, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's executive produced by Steven Spielberg.
He produced the Transformer movies, for God's sake, Joe. Just because it's EEP by Spielberg, that man's just putting his name on everything now.
He likes that quick buck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, July 11th, I'm kind of split on this because initially I was intrigued by this, but then I saw the trailer and it was like popping my balloon. The Superman movie. I like James Gunn. I like what he's done with Peacemaker and stuff like that. And I was intrigued by the whole Superman thing. And I like David Corenswet. If you haven't seen it, he was in a kind of a mini series called Hollywood, which depicted Hollywood in the post-war era. And I really enjoyed that a lot. And I'm like, he looks like a young Henry Cavill. And sure enough, he gets cast as a young.
And he's the
younger version of
villain in
Superman.
Twisters.
Yeah. Even though he had a really minor role in that. But when I saw the trailer, I'm like, I don't know about this. The Crypto, the super dog making an appearance in the trailer. And I'm like, oh, no. And my response to the trailer was, okay, I appreciate that you're going to try and take a lighter tone with Superman because I felt that the Henry Cavill movies went too dark, too serious.
Yeah.
It's like you're taking yourself too seriously. Let's lighten it up. This might be too far in the other direction. I don't know if I need to see.
Crypto was in the comics,
Crypto.
though, when you were growing up.
Was he?
Yeah.
From I remember.
Yeah.
But
he
does he
was.
need to be in the movie? And he's so CGI too.
Well,
like,
It's the Marvel thing. He was trying to do what he did for Marvel.
With the raccoon.
Yeah, and he can't make up his mind. So, are you taking stuff from the previous DC universe or not? Because if Peacemaker's there, then all those guys didn't Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot and Henry Cavill, they were all in that universe. So he's like, no, Peacemaker's going to be real. Exists here. In this one, so I'm like, so what are we doing?
I don't know.
So we'll see. That's like, okay, let's wait and see. I do appreciate that a lot of these movies are coming out in the summertime, which is going to get people back in the theaters in the summer. It's exciting. Speaking of the summer, July 25th, the new Fantastic Four attempt called First Steps. I assume we're going to see their origin story all over again.
Why not?
You got to love Pedro Pascal, so I'm kind of excited that he's in it. We'll see how that plays out. Again, that's another project that they just can't seem to nail down. Like, it's been hit and miss. So again, that's kind of a weird wait and see sort of a thing. I was surprised as I was looking at movies coming out in 2025. We're getting a new Tron movie, Tron Ares.
Why not?
October 10th. The downside is that Jared Leto is starring in it, but Jeff Bridges is returning, so we'll see. New Predator movie coming out, Predator Badlands, starring Elle Fanning. It's coming out November 7th. This one really made my eyes roll. November 21st, the Running Man reboot, starring Glenn Powell of Twisters fame.
But
Hitman.
directed by who?
I don't know.
Alex Garland. No, not Oscar. What's it?
Other British dude, Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright.
Oh, okay, that could be interesting.
Edgar Wright's directed it.
I have hopes for it.
You like him, Nick? Edgar Wright, I'm sure.
And closer to the source material.
Yeah.
A little bit closer
Yeah.
compared to the 80s Arnold thing.
Stephen King.
Yeah,
book.
Stephen
Yeah.
King's directly involved in this.
Yeah.
So Edgar Wright knows this stuff.
What I loved about the first movie, the Arnold Schwarzenegger version, it was kind of along the lines of RoboCop in its satire. Like it was really great satire about giving the audience what they want to the point where you're seeing people kill each other on television. So take that satire and you put Edgar Wright's touch on it. It could be intriguing. We'll see.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we got to wait a year for Wicked sequel to come out. They decided the title is going to be Wicked for Good, which brings that story to a close. I was intrigued about this because 9 years after the first film, we're finally getting Zootopia 2, which I thought was pretty well done. I enjoyed Zootopia.
Yeah, I did see that in the theater, and I liked it.
Yeah, so we're finally getting a sequel to that, kind of along the lines of Incredibles, and Incredibles 2 came out, almost 20 years apart or something ridiculous.
Zootopia came out in 2016.
Yeah.
And
So
they had a bunch of shorts on Disney Plus in the Zootopia universe.
Okay.
Yeah. And the first Zootopia, you may not remember this, won an Oscar for Best Animated Film.
Yep.
Yeah.
Deservingly.
And then finally, on December 19th, Avatar, Fire and Ash.
Yes.
The first one came out in 2009, which was spectacular in 3D. I never got around to seeing Way of the Water, which came out in 2022. Those two movies are in the top 3 highest grossing films of all time. Those two Avatar films, top 3. Will this one follow suit? No. We'll see.
Just keep chasing the blue monkeys.
Avatar grossed $3 billion, while The Way of the Water grossed $2.3 billion. So together, they've grossed almost $6 billion.
Was Endgame in between those two?
Endgame?
Yeah.
I'm not
Avengers.
sure why.
Oh, for grossing wise?
Yeah, I thought Endgame was the number one.
I'm not sure what number 2 is, but
It's got to
be Endgame. Endgame's up there.
Yeah. All right. So those are some of the big, movies that are going to get a lot of press over the next year. Anything on that list really jump out to you guys as something you really, really need to see? Nick?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I know.
It's nothing but sequels, and it's fine. I don't mind being pleasantly surprised. Not that I'm not going to go see them. I'm not turning my nose up at them. I'm just saying it's comic book stuff. It's everyone knows where their bread is buttered. You were talking about 2023 to 2024 and how 2025 summer, all these big ones come in the summer. 2023 to 2024, the box office, 2024 was 28% lower than 2023 until they got to the summer. And then the summer movies made it only a negative 4%.
Sure.
Like a 4% drop off from the box office. So, and we were talking about 2024, like, hey, maybe this will be.
Well, the Christmas season was odd because the Christmas season was bigger this year than last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the summer movies were bigger last year than you had Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
2023.
Right.
So, and we thought, okay, 2023 was Barbenheimer, and then 2024, maybe it'll be better. But overall, it was lower.
Yeah.
And it was actually it was trending going to be horrible until the summer kicked in. And then that, Deadpool, Wolverine.
Yeah, the low summer, too, because that fall guy underperformed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the thing I'm most excited about from this list, and I don't know if excited is the right word, but I feel like that Hollywood is getting back to that structure I grew up with, where the summer were the popcorn, brainless, as we say, put your brain under your seat sort of thing during the summer. And then when the fall rolls around, you start getting the awards contenders and stuff. And I love that structure. And it sounds like the calendar for 2025 is going to be big summer tent pole, crowd pleasing movies if they turn out to be good. And then hopefully we'll get some of that, independent art house stuff later in the year.
I think also, interestingly enough, the way that the 2025 is scheduled, that I feel like when I do a little bit more digging, that there'll be movies that I didn't expect that'll rise up in between there.
Right, exactly.
Like these guys are going to take all the flack.
Oh, that's good.
Good.
Yeah.
And there'll be some good movies that'll rise up in between. I'm like, oh, where's the trailer for this thing? And then you go see it. And then so that's what I'm kind of hoping on.
Yeah. Andrew, what's on your to-do list?
For the ones you mentioned, I want to see these in theater unless they get terrible reviews. Mission Impossible, 28 years later, Jurassic World, Rebirth, Superman, and Fantastic Four. There is an untitled, it's still untitled, Paul Thomas Anderson movie
Yeah.
starring Leo DiCaprio, and it's got a huge budget.
Well, the current title is The Battle of Back and Cross, and that's actually my most anticipated movie of the year. But that's just a temporary title.
And he got a big budget. That's
Oh, he
what's
did.
really.
Yeah.
150
and he
million.
deserves it.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the direct, you're not gonna, you think he pulled stuff off amazing and Licorice Pizza and
Yeah.
Boogie Nights with his camera work?
Yeah.
What's this guy gonna do with $100 million?
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually, is that a good thing or bad? Now I'm scared. Like you give him too
Yeah.
much money. Like
Sure.
Nick-
Scorsese, he does it well.
Yeah, right.
Earlier, Nick briefly mentioned there are 2 Frankenstein movies. One is Guillermo del Toro's, and then the other
Frankenstein,
one
yeah.
is directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, starring Christian Bale. So
Huh.
I'm curious just to see.
I liked her first movie, The Lost Daughter. I
didn't
thought it was really well acted. It's on Netflix.
I didn't see it, but I'm curious to see, what they're going to look like. Who else? Who else is starring in the movies? Begonia, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. He did Poor Things and a bunch of other cool movies. Of course, starring Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. We talked about The Running Man, and then Eddington, which would be starring Joaquin Phoenix. It's going to be sort of a western, directed by Ari Aster, who
Your
did,
favorite director.
What is he directing?
Hereditary. He was joking. Midsummer and Beau is Afraid.
All right.
So some really, really crazy horror movies that'll give you anxiety attacks.
that'll be right up there in
But-
Joe's list.
But I'm curious to see what he does with this. And it's supposed to take place during COVID, so it's going to have a COVID backdrop.
Hmm.
Joaquin Phoenix is playing like a county sheriff who has, all it says is he has higher aspirations.
Hmm.
So with this director, who knows what that means.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to those.
All right, we only have a few minutes left. Robert, I don't want to rush you, but what are you looking forward to in 2025?
I don't have much to say other than Paul Thomas Anderson, and nobody brought it up. Bong Joon-ho's got a new film coming out. I'm kind of skeptical though.
Mickey 17.
Mickey 17
with Robert Pattinson.
He wins Best Picture for Parasite.
Yeah.
Does his first American film.
Yeah.
Not in subtitles. Gonna be Robert
Gets
Pattinson and
accolades.
gets accolades, and then they shuffle the release. It went from like opening to December, then got an odd January release. Then April this year, now to March.
Uh-oh.
Not a good sign, but we shall see.
Yeah.
John
All right.
Bono is a talented director, so
All right. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about in 2025. I'm kind of excited. Lots of releases, and good or bad. And I don't know. I want to get back in the theater again. I want to beat my my score of 2024 of 8 movies I saw in the theater. So I'm looking forward to it and then talking about it with you gents.
Fantastic.
So, all right. Thanks for joining me, guys. Robert, thanks for coming out
thank you
tonight
for having me.
in this weather. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks on Hollywood Blockbuster.
Good night, everybody.
Come to the movies, watch Charlie Chaplin, and put some sunshine into your day. Forget the hard times, come to the movies, and try to laugh your troubles away.